So welcome to the Understanding the Small Business First program brought to you by Procurement Services as a department buyer training session. Please keep your audio muted, as I'd asked before, and we have it available. You can mute and unmute your button and turn on and off your camera. You can invite other participants, so if you have a colleague that needs to hear this as well. You can view the participant list. It opens a pop-out screen that gives you your raise hand option. You can use the chat panel to connect with other participants, ask questions of us, and to share with the group when prompted. At the top of the screen, you can see a choice to toggle between speaker view and gallery view. Speaker view shows the active speaker, and gallery view tiles all the meeting participants. To enlarge the presentation, if you need to make it bigger, click on the view options at the top of your Zoom window and scroll to Zoom ratio. From there, you can choose fit to window or different percentage sizes. And now it is my pleasure to introduce our Chief Procurement Officer, Snehal Bhatt.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you very much for joining this training session. We're very happy to have close to 200 people join. That means there is some interest in this topic. And I think you all should have the interest in this topic because it is a very important topic that many people have been talking about for a while. We are very happy to talk about this, give you guys an overview of what it is, the benefits of it, and what are the things that we will have to do as a campus to make this policy a success. So we'll be, and obviously, talking about the overview, and at the end, you'll see some links for some resources. And then, as Maggie mentioned, we will be doing the Q&A, which I'm sure you will have plenty of questions. We'll try to answer all of the questions. If for some reason we cannot get to an answer or a question, we will make sure that we provide those responses. Again, this is a policy that's being rolled out. So there may be things that we may not have the answers for in terms of how we are going to implement it, but that we will take care of as we go through and roll the policy out. So wanted you to be aware of that. If you go to the next slide, Maggie. So the reason for and the timing for this training to be in this month was because of the email that you all must have received from the Office of the Administrative Policies and Procedures. This is a policy that's been endorsed by our new president, President Drake, and it is a change or an addition to the BUS 43 policy, which is a UCOP procurement policy. What we have added is a section on small business first program, which is basically the set aside program for small businesses. This is a very important program that we all should be very proud to implement. But as I mentioned, there are some things that we will have to do collectively as a team to make it successful. The reason for providing the training now is so that you all have a better understanding of what it is and what it entails. And only then you can make some informed decisions or give some informed feedback on how this policy is going to impact your individual departments and the campus in general. So if you would be kind enough to help us make this policy succeed, please provide your feedback at the link that's been provided. And also you can send an email to procurement@uci.edu. But our preference would be, if you can, send us the responses in the link so that we can consolidate the responses and send to UCOP a UCI response rather than an individual response. I hope you all are okay with that. Having said that, you go to the next slide, Maggie. Just again, you people who have been attending these training sessions probably have heard this before, but we want to make sure that everybody is aware, and those who are new to the training session, have not attended in the past, also get a chance to understand some of the fundamentals of the procurement policies. Being a public university and you being an employee of a public university, you have to be aware of the procurement laws, rules, and regulations, or any executive orders that may have come down from the President of the United States or the Governor of California. So, we have to follow all the policies and procedures. And you also should be familiar with the UCOP policy, as I mentioned, the BUS 43 and the UCS 707-10 and the California Public Contracts Code as it pertains to procurement. Obviously, these are all very big, codes. We don't expect you to know all of them, but you should be familiar with that. If not, you can always ask us and we can help you with that. Just to make sure you realize there is delegation of authority that's been given by the president of the UCOP that comes to the chancellor. Chancellor delegates the authorities to different people on campus, and only select few people have the authority to sign any contracts on behalf of the university. So we kindly ask that the departments please do not sign any contracts on your own, because that may not be a valid contract. You all have, obviously, as I mentioned, need to follow the UC policy as well as the federal and state requirements. If you do not follow the policy and the processes and you spend money, UC may not reimburse you for those expenses, and you may have to bear those expenses if the proper policies have not been followed. So please be mindful of that. All right, with that, I'm going to introduce you, Doreen Tannenbaum, who is our Strategic Initiatives and Communications Manager, and she and her team will be going through the training session today.
Thank you, Snehal, and thank you everyone for joining us today. I'm Doreen Tannenbaum, and I'd like to introduce my team. Shauna Neiswanger, our Training and Communications Assistant and Small Business Coordinator, with Lily Zaprianoff, our Procurement Assistant and Sustainability Coordinator. So some of the things that our team is responsible for are the procurement website, the newsletter, the help desk, training materials, and UC initiatives, including the Small Business First program and sustainable purchasing. Next slide, please, Maggie. As always, you can find our training section available on the procurement website. We have step-by-step training guides, and you can also find interactive courses on UCLC. And we're always available to set up one-on-one training sessions or group sessions if you need any additional procurement assistance. Please contact Shauna Neiswanger at shauna.n@uci.edu. And now I'd like to introduce the UC Small Business First program, which will really change the way we do business and bring our procurement practices further in line with UC's overall mission and values. So first we want to start by talking by why we support small businesses and the importance of the small business program. The small business community is the engine of our state's economy. In California, we have over 4 million small businesses, which employ nearly half of our private workforce. For every $100 spent at a small business, $68 of that stays in California. Contracting with and procuring with small business and diverse businesses really creates and sustains jobs that strengthen our economy. And one of the most important questions we face today as we struggle with the global pandemic and the economic downturn is what we as the University of California can do to fulfill the commitments of our core missions, teaching, research, and public service. As the third largest employer in the state, UC supports one in 46 of all California jobs and contributes to over $32 billion annually to our gross state product. That's a lot of money. So by leveraging our purchasing power, we're able to offer equitable opportunities and access to small and diverse businesses that have historically faced systematic barriers to doing business with UC and have been decimated by COVID-19. Next slide, please. So UC is committed to providing contracting and procurement opportunities for certified small businesses, micro businesses, and disabled veteran business enterprises using an informal process rather than formal bidding. But for the purpose of this presentation, the term small business will incorporate all of these entities. And under the umbrella of small business, we include disadvantaged business enterprises, women-owned small businesses, hub zone businesses, and so on. So this program is focused on supporting the diversity of businesses that fall under the small business umbrella. starting March 1st, any purchases made between $10,000 to $250,000 that cannot be procured by an existing strategically sourced agreement must be awarded to small businesses wherever practical. But there are some exceptions available, so don't worry, we'll go over that shortly. And a waiver needs to be filled out if any of these exceptions aren't met or if you're not using one of the small business entities. So what are the benefits of the small business program? As you can see in this decision tree, it's an opportunity to streamline our procurement process and support small businesses at the same time. We're also a bill to save on time and cost. So if annual transactions fall below $100,000, then only one quote is required from a certified small business. And if annual transactions between $100,000 to $250,000, then only two quotes are required. However, if you're using a higher quote, then a justification is required. We still have a fiscal responsibility to the university and need to provide savings and benefits wherever we can. So instead of going out to bid through the normal formal process, you can go to small businesses without competitively bidding. As long as university obtains price quotations with 2 or more certified small businesses. Backup documentation is still required to verify the certification, as well as all the other necessary documentation normally required for these purchases. And a screenshot of the certification is sufficient. And for those of you that don't know how to screenshot, you can hit the Shift window key and S keyboard combo on PCs, or the Command Shift and 3 on Macs. And we have a little handy guide there. So how do we find qualified small businesses? You can visit caleprocure.ca.gov to perform a search. And we're going to go over this video in just a second on how to do that. And if you're unable to find any small businesses through the Eprocure search, then please send an email to smallbusiness@uci.edu for further assistance. Maggie, can you play that video for us, please?
Welcome to this overview of the Eprocure website. No login is required to search through tens of thousands of suppliers registered with the state of California. Let's get started by clicking on Small Business/Disabled Veteran Business Enterprise. Then click on Search for Certified SB/DVBE firms. You're presented with a variety of ways to search for qualified businesses. We are going to focus on the simplest way to use this search tool. Then we will dive deeper into some of the options. First, under certification type, select microbusiness, small business for the purpose of public works, and disabled veteran business enterprise. Businesses in these classifications meet UC criteria for small business first. The next step is to enter a set of search terms into the keywords field. Then click search. A randomized list of suppliers that match your criteria will be displayed. If you're satisfied with the data, click the Download button at the top of the screen to download an Excel file with all of your search results. It's useful to use this data to pull relevant keywords and help you better pick the best supplier for your project. But what if you aren't satisfied with the search results? Maybe there are too many results or not enough. Let's dive deeper into the search options and how best to use them. Click the little down arrow in the gray bar to reopen the search criteria. Let's go through them all. Business name. If you know the supplier you want to work with, enter it here. Try unchecking the certification types if you can't find the business you're looking for on your first search. Certification ID. It is unlikely you will have this information unless you request it from a business that you know. Business type. Restrict your search results to suppliers that meet only these criteria. In this case, we only want service providers, so we make that selection. UNSB/SC classifications. In our example, the video keyword was a little vague. What we want is a video production company. Click on the hamburger menu, the 3 horizontal lines, to bring up the search criteria. Look for the description field and pick Contains from the drop-down menu. Then enter your search terms, in this case video production. Now we see that video production service has a category, and we can click on the number to select it. NICS classifications, again click the hamburger menu to search for and select the relevant code. Contractors license classifications, again the hamburger menu to search for and select the relevant codes. Service area, use the hamburger menu to search for the relevant California county code. For example, Alameda County is 001. And lastly, zip code. If the service area options are too large, you can drill down to a smaller geographic area with zip codes. With these changes to our search criteria, we go from 524 results to 93. As a reminder, these results are randomized, so be sure to download the results and view them offline. This concludes the overview for how to use Cal Eprocure. Be sure to check out the video for how to use Explorer also.
And thank you. I'm going to turn it over now to Shauna, and she's going to go over some of the exemptions where no waiver is required.
Thank you, Doreen. If your purchases include any of the following exemptions, then no waiver form is required. Sole source, unique professional services, and emergency in nature. Please remember that emergencies are not in lieu of time management. Purchases through existing agreements found on the procurement site under contracted suppliers or through UCI buy. Federally funded purchases. For design and construction projects that is governed by the facilities manual. If you're utilizing interagency or federal local government agreements. Research subawards. Higher ed institution agreements, concessions for food and beverage, revenue or reimbursement contracts, medical and patient care contracts, and statutory exempt, policy exempt, emergency, proprietary, and local assistance subvention purchases. A completed and signed waiver must be attached to the requisition with the required supporting documents for procurement services approval. Please send waivers to smallbusiness@uci.edu. And remember, prior to filling out the waiver, confirm the goods and/or services cannot be provided by a strategically sourced supplier. The waiver form on page 1 collects relevant information on specific contract or purchasing opportunity that is being submitted for one-time exception, such as requisition number, dollar amount of the estimated value of the purchase or contract for award, campus department, and a brief scope of work summarizing the work to be awarded. On page 2, the details are collected for the reasons submitted to justify for a waiver for compliance with the Small Business First program and details on how you performed the search. And on the last page, you will be asked to fill out the justification again, detailing the steps taken and other pertinent information to support the waiver. And on sections 3 and 4, we'll collect the appropriate signatures to finalize the form. Here's also a list of additional resources. Again, the slides and video will be on our website, as well as emailed to you later in the week. And now I'll turn this back over to Snehal.
Thank you, Shauna. So as you all can see, this training session was rather brief. We try to keep it short so that we can have enough time for Q&A, for people to ask questions, and for us to try and provide the appropriate responses to those questions. I just wanted to recap one more time the benefits of this program, what this policy change means to everybody in the departments and to the central procurement team, and a little bit about the effective date of this program. If you got the chance to read the email that was sent by the Policies and Procedures Administrative Office, they have asked everybody to provide the responses by 15th of April. And this basically has been sent to all the campuses. So every campus's Policies and Procedure Office has sent the email to their respective campus staff and faculty to provide the responses to this change in the policy. So essentially, the benefits of this policy are, as Doreen mentioned, our commitment to small businesses, and that includes all the things, businesses that Doreen mentioned under the umbrella of small business. We are committed to that. We fully support that. We want to make sure that we promote small businesses. But implementing this policy is going to come at a price. There is going to be added work, as you can see, but there also is benefits for that. As Shauna mentioned, if we were going to use a small business, we do not have to go through the competitive bidding process. And we should be able to just get one quote for the spend that's between $10,000 and $100,000 annually, or receive two quotes from small businesses that is between $100,000 and $250,000. I want everybody to be very mindful that this does not necessarily follow the best practices in procurement. As you all know, we have always been insisting on you trying to get at least 3 quotes so that we know that we are paying a fair price for the product. We also want to make sure that the products that you are receiving are of good quality and that you're not going to run into any problems with the product's quality if you get it from a supplier that's not been properly vetted. So there are a lot of factors to be considered when we look at this policy implementation. We just don't want to randomly just select any small business to purchase the product only to find out that we ran into so many issues after buying the product that we are spending a lot of time either returning the product or having difficulty returning it, or that it's not doing the job that we expect it to do. So, just be mindful of those things when you are implementing this policy. As I said, we are trying to make it easy for you to use small businesses, and that's the intent. But at the same time, let's all be very mindful of making sure that we still perform our due diligence and make sure that the suppliers are the right suppliers that we should be buying the products from. To that end, we do have intentions of creating tools and job aids that is going to help the campus have vetted, properly selected suppliers in various commodities and categories for us to make purchases from. But that is still in development. We do not have those tools available, readily available right now. But our intent is, as we all individually within the UCI campus and all the other UC campuses start identifying good, reliable small businesses for various commodities, we will start populating that list and make it readily available for the various departments to utilize. That, of course, is going to take a little bit of time, but as we go through this whole process, we will get better and better. And over time, we should have identified suppliers that we can use for the various commodities. There also will be situations where it is just not possible to find a small business for some of the commodities. In those instances, we are looking to see potentially adding those to the exceptions list so that we are not expecting you to sign those, fill out those waivers and get approvals for the waivers before you can make the purchase. So there is a lot of work that is being done in those areas. But until we get to that point, there could be some pain that we all may have to endure. The waiver form is, we understand, not probably as easy to fill out in the initial stages, because we have to provide justification that we have done our due diligence, we have looked for small business for a particular purchase, and you have to provide some documentation that shows that you have done that. And if you cannot find a small business, is then you fill out the form, provide justification, and then it comes to the procurement office. So there's going to be added work on our end to actually go through all the different waivers that are being submitted. Or if you come to us and ask us to help you, now our team will also try to help you find a small business for a particular purchase. Obviously, that means that there could be additional time that it's going to take for us to actually go through and make the purchase. So be very mindful of that as well. I don't know how many PIs and faculty members attend these training sessions, or how many of them actually have read the policy that's been sent out to everybody. But we are hopeful that you, as our conduit, will communicate this to the various PIs and faculties and inform them of this new policy that is effectively in place and is supposed to be implemented by the 1st of March. As I mentioned, because the feedback timing for this policy review is till the 15th of April, that has been given to all the campuses to provide their feedback. We are going to see if it's possible for us to extend that implementation date further out to make sure we incorporate all the feedback from the various campuses in the policy. But we most certainly want to start the process beginning March 1st and see how it goes. As I said, there will be some growing pains, as it is with any new policy. There is going to be a change management aspect of it that is going to be required to get everybody comfortable with this new policy. But as I said, it is something that we are committed to. We do want to make it work because it's the right thing to do. As Doreen gave all the statistics, we definitely should be supporting this program. So with that, I will end my recap. Just wanted to make sure that you all are aware of the pros and cons of any new policy, particularly this one. And now we'll open up the floor for any questions.
I also just want to quickly remind everyone to, after this event, please provide feedback on the event and the proposed policy at http://bit.ly/20-23-survey. And I'll also put that link in the chat.
Thank you, Maggie. So we've had a couple questions come in. One was sent over privately and said, to what extent is UCI Health and UCI Medical Center exempt from this policy?
That's an excellent question that I have been pondering upon for quite some time now. I don't have a good answer yet. I'm also, because at UCI, as we all know, there was a little bit of a clear demarcation between the medical center and the campus. We do know that the medical center is exempt from this policy. So any purchases going through the medical center are not, medical center procurement office do not have to comply to this policy at this point. I don't know if it will change in the future, but at least at this point, they are not part of this policy. So if I were to give an answer that I would be satisfied with, it would be any purchases that go through this campus procurement office, even though it could be for health, UCI Health, the policy will apply. And we should try to use it unless there are reasons why we cannot use a small business.
Thank you, Snehal. Another question came in. Does this policy apply to vendors that can provide copyright and trademark items? When she met with Hung, they identified that suppliers can only be used for these type of purchases. Does that change things?
Yeah, so any promotional items that have been purchased, this policy will apply. So I've been having conversations with Hung about this. We do have small businesses available for promotional items. And unless they are unable to provide, none of the small businesses are able to provide us with the items. And if it is between $10,000 and $250,000, we should try to utilize the small business. Now, that's also is going to beg a conversation that we will have to have with all the promotion other companies that are not small businesses and don't fall into any of those categories, and see how we can continue to work with them and not have them feel like we cannot do any business with them. So this is a dilemma that we will have to work through, and these are all the fallouts from the policy that is being rolled out.
And then we received another question. Are all existing KFS vendors not affected by this policy?
So this is a good opportunity for us to try and clarify something. Just because a vendor is in KFS does not mean that you are free to use that vendor for any purchase that you may want to have. A vendor in KFS is approved so that an invoice can be paid to that supplier through our financial systems. A supplier could have been onboarded in KFS for a very specific product that somebody on the campus may be buying from that supplier. That does not mean that that supplier is a free-for-all supplier, and it can be, the supplier can be used for any purchase that you may want to have from that supplier. So we have, gosh, more than 10,000 suppliers in KFS, but that does not mean that they are all small businesses. Also, at this point, we have suppliers who have marked themselves as small businesses, but not all of them are certified small businesses. So this policy very clearly states that you have to make purchases from certified small businesses. Doreen and Sean are actually going through the whole exercise of identifying those suppliers that have checked boxes against them as being small business that are certified versus those that are not certified. So I would not necessarily trust the flag in KFS because we are still going through the process of screening those and identifying those that are certified versus those that are not. Doreen, does that rightfully answer the
That
question?
does. And again, it's best if you do your search in Cal Eprocure and, you know, either search by business name or search by what the business is offering, if it's a product or service. And that video would be a really great tool for you to review again once we send out the recording. And so once you really understand it, you'll be able to identify those certified small businesses. So some of our promotional items are certified small businesses, so that's great. Some of them are not official small business certifications yet. So we're working with them to really get everyone through the certification process. And in the next month or two, we're going to be holding some webinars with all of our suppliers to show them how to go through the certification process. And so it's easily vetted for everyone else to use. I'm going to go back to the questions.
Doreen, if I could add one more thing to that, if you don't mind. Okay. So Cal Eprocure is one of the tools, and that is specific to California-based vendors. There is another tool, and it's referenced on the waiver form as well, called the Explorer tool through Supplier.io. And I just wanted to let you know, this is one of the tools that's coming down the road that we're looking to get everyone able to sign on with single sign-on. Once that is available, then we will do a training or have Supplier.io come and do a training for our campus. So stay tuned to that because it's something you'll want to use. It's a very useful tool, and it will have a very robust search function. And just so you guys are aware, there's no set time for expiration, so they could expire any month. So that's why we have to keep on top of the expiration dates, and that's why we always want to be as current as possible with these searches.
So again, if we do have a list of certified small businesses, it may not be, still certified tomorrow. They might have different expiration dates throughout the year. So every time that you are going to be purchasing with a small business, make sure that you are checking for that certification process. And there is a training video that we are currently developing with UCOP to go over the Supplier.io process. So it will be a lot easier for you guys to understand how to make all these searches. And if not, we're always available to assist you if you send an email to smallbusiness@uci.edu. I'm going to go back to a few more questions that we've received. Yes, again, this training is recorded and will be emailed to you later this week, and will also be housed on our procurement website. We are available to provide training presentations to individual schools if necessary. Just reach out to either Sean or myself, and we can arrange that for you. So does this policy apply to purchases under $10,000? And that's a really good question. It's an annual spend. So if you are making individual purchases, throughout the year and it's under $10,000, then no. But as soon as you hit that $10,000 mark, or that you're going to be hitting that $10,000 mark, in that year, you need to make sure that you have the one quote from the certified small business.
So yeah, these are some of the nuances and challenges that we are going to face. Is when you make the first purchase, you may not know that you will be making another purchase during the year, and then you end up buying it again or something else from the same supplier, and it goes over $10,000, and now you say, "Oops." Now what? I'm kind of already bought the items from somebody who's not a small business. My spend is going to be over $10,000. So we will run into those issues. Those are the practical issues that we will run into, and that's why we will roll out this policy, and we'll probably go back and review it after a year and see what adjustments we need to make to accommodate for some of these practical difficulties that we may be facing. So do your best at this point. It's not that we are mandating or that you are going to be in trouble for not, if that situation arises. But obviously, as I said, we want to be mindful of it, and we want to try to do our best to provide, small businesses with the opportunity to earn our business. So just let's see how it rolls out and how it goes. It's not like anybody's going to be penalized or there's going to be any reprimandation for that. Again, this is a good faith effort on our part to do what we can to support the small businesses.
And there are a lot of questions coming in, and we really welcome that. Again, if you have any comments and you're dissatisfied with the procedures and policies, that's what that survey is for. So please go ahead and voice those concerns in that survey, and we can take that back to UCOP. So going back to our questions, which KFS vendors that we have strategic agreements with and receive free shipping or discounts are exempt from the policy, and how can we tell?
Okay, so one of the things with this policy is if we have a contract, an agreement with any supplier, then this policy is not applicable. That's exempt. So we do still encourage everybody to utilize our contracted suppliers first, unless you know of a small business that is one that we want to promote and you are comfortable with using, you can go ahead and use them. But if it's a contracted supplier, then they don't need to be small businesses for any amount of spend. Doesn't matter whether it's $1 to $1 million to 10 million. If it's a contracted supplier or we have strategic contracts with them, the policy makes an exception to that, and you can go ahead and use that supplier.
And I got another question. Does this mean we may have to stop doing business with vendors we've been working with for years if they're not a small business? It's a good question.
So yeah, ideally, if you have a supplier that you have been doing business with for many years, we should try and establish a contract with them, because now they are technically a long-term supplier. And for any long-term suppliers, we should try to establish a long-term agreement. And we can at UCI, and we have established long-term agreements with local suppliers that are UCI agreements. And so if you have those suppliers, reach out to our teams. We will work with you to try and see if we can make them a contracted supplier, and then this policy will not apply to those suppliers.
If I could add, we just want to encourage, though, all these small businesses, if they do qualify as a small or diverse business, to go ahead and get certified. So that is also an opening to have that conversation, and you can be our advocates to help, spread that message as well.
And
Correct.
you can always send them over to Shauna or myself, and we can work with them on getting them certified if they are a small business or disadvantaged business, veteran owned. So any of those that fall under that umbrella.
Absolutely.
If a purchase is under $10,000, how do I know what their annual spend is?
Yeah, that is the thing I mentioned about. It's a challenge. We really don't know because there could be 3 different departments who could be buying from the same supplier, and the aggregate spend will be going over $10,000. Those are situations that are not going to be easy for us to track right now. As we go along, we will keep log of, or we will try to run some reports, do some analysis, and see if we can address those going forward. So I wouldn't get too worried about it at this point, but at some point down the road, we will try to figure out how to address that.
Another question is, if it's total expenditures per year, then what about purchases such as laptops from Apple Higher Ed?
Yeah, I hope that those laptops are not costing you more than $10,000. And also we have agreements with Apple and CDWG from whom you can buy an Apple product. So those will fall under the contracted spend, and the policy would not apply.
Snehal, can I also chime in?
Please.
Yeah. So especially for Apple products, I believe CDWG is one of the few authorized resellers for higher education. So even if you wanted to, other businesses shouldn't be selling any Apple products to higher education.
Thank you, Patrick. Another question was, even office supplies, they can go over $10,000 annually. So yes, that's a great question. Again, if you're using UCI Buy, which we have our Office Depot and Office Solutions contracts in there, this won't apply. So as long as you're going through those to make those purchases, you'll be fine. And then another question, since UCI Medical Center is exempt, does that preclude them from using this policy where appropriate, especially for avoiding the bid?
So I didn't understand the difference between the medical center and avoiding the bid.
James, do you want to unmute yourself and clarify your question if you're still on?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, hey, Snehal.
Hey,
yeah, I
James.
was just curious, if the medical center is exempt, does that mean we can't use any aspect of the policy, meaning it's unavailable to us? Or if it's appropriate, can we utilize it to help, to help our end goal?
That's a good point, James. I never thought of it from that perspective. Yeah, so I don't know. You want to use this as an opportunity not to have to go through competitive bidding and use a small business. That's something that we can take back to COP and see what their opinion is on that. That's a good twist to the whole situation. I do know that for federally funded projects, the requirement is that you only need 2 quotes if it's a small business, up to $250,000. I believe that the California state also has a policy where the public contract codes allows you to use small businesses without having to competitively bid. So you probably will be able to capitalize on that policy that's already in effect to avoid competitive bidding. I hope that answers the question, James.
It did. Sorry, I was on mute.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Doreen, we got a lot more questions. Let's try to run through them quick.
So if the small business is higher in price than the big business, are we still required to go with the small business, or are we required to get a quote from a small business for comparison with a larger business?
That is correct. I think you got that right. And this is the challenge we are facing. If the small business is pricing are much higher than a larger business, which is not a contracted supplier, you can provide justification as to why you're not using them. You're not forced to use them if they are higher in price compared to somebody else. You just have to fill out the waiver form and provide the justification explaining that the small business that you looked at, pricing was much higher than what the other company was able to provide. And so you can use that waiver form for that purpose.
And how does this apply to software product agreements?
Patrick?
Well, I think for the most part, usually anything over $10,000, typically, for the most part, will require an agreement anyway. So in a sense, they would be contracted.
Right. Plus you are trying to buy a product that is unique to that company. I don't know if you would find a small business that also is providing a product that's a platform or a software. I mean, if software is unique to what your needs are. So, unless you can find a small business, those are the exceptions, as I was mentioning, that we will at some point come up with exceptions saying, okay, software products are excluded from this policy if we find that it just doesn't apply. So those are the things that we will revise the policy as we go.
One thing we've noticed about software, some of these softwares, is because some of them contain really sensitive data. So a lot of times what we've been finding out is some of the smaller businesses aren't able to comply with the UC's requirement on insurance.
Right.
So that's something we will evaluate.
Correct. But let's take that as point, Doreen, for the small business or for software. We should look at that and see if we can, SLAs can be made exempt from this policy.
Sounds good. Another question was, how does this apply to international vendors?
There is no difference between international vendors or non-small businesses. So unless you can prove that this product has to be bought from that international business and there is no small business available for that purchase, you'll have to fill out the waiver form, basically, if you are required to use the international business for any particular purchase.
And unfortunately, there are no international certifications available at this time.
Correct.
So we're unable to certify to see if they are a small business.
Correct.
Is Amazon considered to be under contract since we have Amazon Prime accounts?
Well, actually, it's Amazon Business. Amazon Prime accounts are not considered to be contracted supplier. But Amazon Business, we do have Amazon Business, but technically Amazon Business is not considered a contracted supplier. Amazon Business is a feature that's being made available for people to make purchases for business use and make utilization of the 2-day shipping prime shipping for the products. So technically, Amazon Business does not fall under that category.
And it's a very good point we can take back to UCOP about that, because I know in the pandemic with addresses, we have that specific challenge of deliveries. You know, a lot of deliveries have to go to people's homes, and we can support that in KFS. So very good point to bring back to them as well about Amazon purchases.
Agreed, absolutely.
Yes, Shana, so also, yeah, because during pandemic and COVID, a lot of people have to use Amazon to be able to ship goods to their home addresses. So it's kind of a like exceptional time right now. But I've had meetings with Amazon Business as well for flagging for small businesses for some of the sellers for Amazon. So that feature will be up. I actually have it on right now, but I think it needs to be tweaked better so that there's flags and badges that people can see that a particular seller in Amazon Business is really a certified small business vendor. So there'll be more information regarding that later.
Right.
And we are working with Amazon to do a vetting process for local small businesses. We're going to be piloting a program with them hopefully in the next year. So they're working on developing that specifically for us, and then we can take it back to other UCs and CSUs and show them how we're supporting the small business community and local businesses.
Also, I believe that Karen Martin had a question we might not have answered. Her question was, I'm not sure I understand why federally funds are exempt from this policy. What we mentioned earlier is that federally funded grants and awards typically have specific guidelines dictating how the funds are spent. So these would make us, in those cases, it would be exempt from this policy because we don't have control over those terms and conditions.
Thank you, Shauna.
And then another question, if you're currently working on an agreement with the contracts team, does this policy apply if it's finalized in March?
Yeah, that's fine. If you're already working on something with the contracts team, that would be treated as a contracted spend. So don't worry about timing. Just go ahead and execute the agreement and then utilize the supplier.
And then what about purchases through the UCI bookstore, computer store?
That's not considered to be, that would be exempt. You can buy because we have a contract with the bookstore, and so that will fall under the contracted spend.
And then again, you can find the contracted suppliers on our website. If you go to the procurement tab, there is a contracted supplier link right there, and then it will give you a list of all of our suppliers. There are hundreds, if not thousands. I think that's it for all of our questions. Again, if you have any additional questions or comments or concerns, please fill out the survey or send us an email at procurement@uci.edu, and we can address all of these and send it over to UCOP. We're constantly meeting with our team, the small business first team, and these are all really great points that we will take back to them. We're making note of all of your questions right now. But I will turn it over to Snehal for any closing remarks. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, so I most definitely want to thank everybody who took the time to attend this session. I truly appreciate all the questions that are being asked. They are great questions. That's the whole idea behind having this session, is to try to address the questions that you may have. We also want to very strongly encourage all of you to put down your concerns, what you like about the policy, but also, what are the things that you see that you will be facing that can be a challenge for you? Because I can understand that, failing the waiver form may be a challenge and may take some more resources. It may add more time. But if you have any concerns, please feel free to provide your feedback, which is what UCOP is looking for. They want to make sure that this policy, when it goes into effect, that we have considered and taken into account all the various elements of it and all the impacts of the policy change. I certainly have some of my concerns because it does say in the policy, if you have any questions and cannot find a small business, you can reach out to the small business coordinator at your campus, which in our case happens to be Shauna. And if we are going to have, we have more than 1,000 to 1,500 POs between $10,000 and $250,000. So I can see us getting inundated with a lot of questions from the campus asking us to help them find a small business. And so, you know, it's a concern that I've already raised. We will try to address that. Again, that is not a reason not to comply with the policy or not to adopt the policy, because it's the right thing to do. We just have to figure out what the right solution is going to be and what help we are going to need to make this a success.
Thank you. And just a reminder that we are working on getting that waiver put into DocuSign to really make it an easier process for everyone to fill out. I know I'm going to be receiving a lot of waivers coming March 1st. So again, if you have any concerns, please send us any emails and we will take these all back to UCOP.
Yep, thank you again. I think I'm glad we gave you all a lot of time for questions, because we utilized the entire hour that we had allocated for this training. We want to thank you all for being here. Thank you for your support. This is not going to be successful without the collaboration and partnership between your functions, yourself, and our team. So let's work together jointly as partners and collaborators in making this policy successful. Okay. Thank you all. Have a good rest of the day. Stay safe and enjoy the rest of the week.